welcome back to another Commander set review. My name is Scott. All hail Phyrexia. May your completion be swift, so that you may know perfection. Okay, now that everyone knows that I'm a sleeper agent, let's get on with the set review. If you have not seen one of my set reviews before, it is purely from a mono black perspective for Commander. I did a lot of mono black decks. I like to see, what's being added and where it might be going in the future. So I like to go through each set and kind of, see what's happening. So let's start off with Drivnod, Carnage, Dominus. Okay, so 3 and 2 black, legendary creature, Phyrexian Horror. If a creature dying causes a trigger ability on a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers additional time. And then it's got the activate ability, so 2 black Phyrexians. Exile 3 creature cards from your graveyard, put an indestructible counter on it. It is an 8/3. Wow, it is a big beast. Okay, so if you've seen Taste of Karlov, very popular commander, pretty much the same effect here. So creatures dying causes triggered abilities of permanents we control to trigger additional time. So that's good things like Grave Pact, Dictator Erebos, any other, it doesn't have to be a creature obviously that's going to trigger, but essentially is if it has a line, whenever creature dies, then it's going to trigger an additional time, unless it of course says only triggers once. So yeah, I think this, it's going to be definitely strong. Taste of Karlov is already a popular commander. This one's obviously 1 mana more and only obviously 1 color, but it is an 8/3, big. And then it's got the extra ability where you can put the indestructible counter on, which is kind of nice. I think 3 creature cards in your graveyard, it's probably harder than, it reads. It really has to be an Aristocrats deck, right? It's not really going to suit anything outside of it. But it can't be necessarily a token Aristocrats. I have a Yara deck, and it is a lot of tokens. So that is not really going to help it get an indestructible counter. But obviously if you've got your creature cards, then it's going to be good. I think this one's definitely going to be popular. 8/3 is huge, right? So, you only need to give it an extra 3 power and you're starting on 2 turns commander damage. So I think it could be, definitely an interesting card. I think combat's going to be fun with that one. Okay, Geth Thane of Contracts, 1 and 2 black. Phyrexian Zombie, which is nice. Other creatures you control get -1/-1. Then you can tap it for 1 and 2 black. Return target creature from the graveyard to the battlefield. It gains when this creature leaves the battlefield. It essentially exiles, and you can only activate as a sorcery, and it's a 3/4. Really interesting card. So essentially, Reanimator. But creatures get -1/-1. So it's not gonna be like an Aristocrats kind of backup. It's purely going to be I want big fatties. So spoiler, this one I've been really trying to brew around. I found this one really interesting, right? Because to be honest, mono black doesn't have a lot of dedicated reanimators outside of Chainer. Chainer's just so good that you can just have this the whole time. But the problem with Chainer is it ends up being a lot more combo-ish than I really wanted, because if you get rid of Chainer, then you get rid of everything. So you really need to have a big impact straight on the battlefield. So I kind of got a bit bored of it. It was really just a bunch of Kukusho lines, just trying to get as much as life loss as I could do. But this one, it's cheap, only 3 mana, but it has to tap, so it's going to be quite slow. And then it's also an additional 3 mana. So it's just kind of like I'm going to be doing stuff and I might play my commander kind of Reanimator, which I kind of dig. I really enjoy Reanimator as an archetype, and I think this can just be that commander, and it's not going to get the same groans, and it's not going to have the same I need sacrifice outlets like Chainer does, and I need to get as much on the board as Chainer does. So I think this is a cool Reanimator option for Mono Black. Yeah, I've been brewing it. I think it's fun. Definitely worse and slower, but I think this will be your casuals Reanimator. Okay, Karamanox, the Rat King, 1 and 2 black. It is a rat. Toxic 1. Other rats you control have Toxic 1. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards. You may reveal any number of rats and put them in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay, and it's 3/3. Yeah, cool rat commander. I'm maybe one of the dozen mono black people that I'm not really into rats. So I think if Ashcoat didn't just come out, this might be like, oh yes, this is the new rat commander. But I don't think this one's as good as Ashcoat, but I think this definitely can slot into your 99. And I think you can, make this your rat commander. That'd be fun, right? Like you can mix Ashcoat and this and be fine with it. It's going to find you more rats. The problem with like say a Relentless Rats build, or rat colony build, they're already pretty big, right? So I don't really care about Toxic 1, and a lot of them just get blocked, and it's just not as impactful as you think it might be. So Toxic 1, I don't really see that really doing well. I think if it had Infect, it would be different, but I think that's the case with Toxic in general. Yeah, cool commander. People are gonna make it. Great. Kinzu of the Bleak Coven, 4 and a black, vampire, Phyrexian vampire, flying. When another non-token creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life and exile it. If you do, create a token of it. It's a 1/1 with Toxic, and it's 5/4. Okay, so this is basically the exact same as Nightmare Shepherd. Nightmare Shepherd I really enjoy. I think it's actually a pretty decent card. It's great for like that board wipe protection. Yeah, okay, board wipe me, sure. I'm just going to get a bunch of 1/1 versions of it. So really it's going to be, I don't care about my graveyard. I'm just going to exile those creatures anyway. What's the value of the 1/1 and Toxic? So yeah, again, I think Toxic's going to be okay. I am going to try this in my Infect deck because I think that getting some of your 1/1 Infect creatures back as a 1/1 with Toxic, I think is just perfectly fine. And this is in your command zone, so this could be your commander, obviously. I think it's hard to build around. It's just like it doesn't really tell you what you should be doing. It's just like, okay, my creatures die, so maybe it's sacrifice. I'm paying life. I'm getting 1/1 versions of it, so I can get that additional sacrifice. Yeah, maybe I might stick this in like my Drivnod deck, right? So they die. So they do die. You may then exile it. And so you get the trigger, and then you can bring it back, do it all over again, right? So yeah, it's just the extra effect. Like I said, I like Nightmare Shepherd. I think it's a great card, but this one's in your command zone. It's 1 more. You have to pay 2 life, so it works with Villas, Broker of Blood. So I think all around it's a decent card. I think it's not going to be popular as a commander, but it might slot in the deck as in the 99. Okay, Vran Executioner Thane, 1 and a black, Phyrexian vampire, another vampire. Whenever 1 or more other creatures you control die, each opponent loses 2 life and gains 2 life. This ability only triggers once, and it's 2/2. Yeah, so it's like Zulaport Cutthroat, but stronger, but only triggers once. So even with Drivnod, yeah. It's only going to trigger once, right? So you wouldn't even put this in a Drivnod deck, because even though it will trigger twice, it only triggers once. So yeah, I don't know how many more of these effects you want and how many of these you want to only trigger once. So you need to be able to kill something each turn. So a Shirai deck might be okay where you're killing stuff on everybody's turn, but then you still have Blood Artist, Zulaport Cutthroat, Bastion of Remembrance, Sir Conrad. Like, there's already enough cards that do this. I don't think we need another one. It's cool that it's in your command zone now, but Sir Conrad was in your command zone, but I guess Sir Conrad, you kind of built around it a bit more, where this one is just like, I'm just an Aristocrats deck and I get a little bit of value from my commander. Yeah. All up, I don't think anything was really added to mono black except for maybe this double trigger thing, which was a Taste of Karlov only ability. But all up, 5 commanders, that's really, really great. I think Drivnod will definitely be the most popular, and then maybe Karamanox, because people love rats. Kinzu, Vran, Geth, they're really not going to be played much, I think. Kinzu might be played more than Geth and Vran. It's not really adding anything new. Having them as our commanders quite nice, but I think Drivnod's definitely going to be the most popular. So I've been brewing Geth, and I'm brewing Drivnod, but I don't really think I'm going to be able to do anything special. I think it's just going to look like everyone else's Drivnod. I'm changing my Ayara to be this Drivnod and see how that plays and see how I like it. Kinzu of the Bleak Coven interests me as well, but I don't know where to go with that one, so I need to let that one, fester in the mind. Okay, cool. So those are commanders. Really, really cool. All right, we'll go through the rest of the black cards. So first up, Vraska's Betrayal's Sting, 4 a black and a Phyrexia in black. So this has completed, so you can pay that Phyrexia and you get 2 less loyalty. So it's 6 loyalty, I guess. So for 5 mana, it's 4 loyalty. For 6 mana, it's 6. 5 mana is 4, yep. So 0, you draw a card, lose a life, proliferate. -2, you turn something into a treasure, which is cool, really nice, right? Target creature becomes a treasure. And then -9, if target player has fewer than 9 poison counters, they get 9 counters equal to the difference. So really, really cool. You draw a card, you lose a life, you proliferate. So for loyalty, it's okay, 5 mana. I think this really works well with a Super Friends deck. I did build a Yawgmoth Super Friends deck for Mono Black, but ultimately it was just okay. Mono Black didn't really have a lot suited for Super Friends, but this would definitely help. The -2 is essentially removal, also possibly ramp for yourself if you really needed to. So that's kind of cool. -9 get someone to 9 poison, so you just need to then proliferate after that. So I might try this in my Infect deck that I'm building, and see how that goes, because that has a lot of proliferate. I think this set has a lot of proliferate, rather than say Toxic being really, really great. It's more like proliferate getting cheaper. I think this is a cool card. I think you're really only going to play it as Super Friends or Infect deck, pretty much. Okay, Archfiend of the Dross. 2 and 2 black Phyrexian Demon, flying. When it enters the battlefield, gets 4 oil counters. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can remove one of them. If you have no oil counters, you lose life. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, its controller loses 2 life. This one's probably more just a standard card. I don't really see it being useful in Commander. I think the last line is kind of cool, the Massacre Worm effect. The good thing about Massacre Worm, it does kill things, where this doesn't really do that. I think if you can proliferate your oil counters, it might be fine, if you can do that consistently, but do we really care about a 6/6 flying creature that sometimes will have our opponent lose 2 life? How much life does your opponent have to lose before this is good? Ultimately, I think it's just standard card. Black Sun's Twilight, X at a black instant, up to 1 target creature gets -X, and then if X is 5 or more, return a creature card with mana value X or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. So it is your graveyard. It is up to 1 target creature, so you don't have to target. You don't have to have a creature, obviously, to target. So for 6 mana, you're going to return a creature at instant speed, and someone's going to lose a creature, most likely. So you're going to get that kind of 2-for-1 value, but it's still 6 mana. Reanimate at that kind of mana cost, even though this is like that you're killing someone's creature possibly. Yeah, it's really just like when you have reanimate, animate, dead. Those kind of mana costs are just really difficult. I mean, you can play this. I think it's going to be fine, right? Instant speed, Shieldred, Whispering One on someone's end step to get the next person, or to you to get the reanimate. Like, you know, that's just going to be fun. But yeah, it's still 6 mana. You're holding up a lot of mana. Essentially, you're losing your turn. All right, for 6 mana. So possibly just a standard card, probably not even that. Ambulatory Edifice, 2 and a black, Phyrexia Construct. So these are the uncommons now. So not many rares. We've got a lot of reprints. So it enters the battlefield. You may pay 2 life. When you do, target creature gets -1/-1. Right. Limited card. Bilious Skull Dweller, Death Touch, Toxic 1 for 1 insect 1/1. Yeah. So Death Touch, Toxic. Yeah, it's kind of okay, right? People aren't really going to block it, but then someone's just going to block it with their 2/2. It's okay. Like, you know, it's good because you can get it out down early and start the infect, which is really nice. Chittering Skitterling, 2 and a black, Phyrexian Rat, sacrifice an artifact. Also, it's corrupted, so it has to have 3. The opponent has to have 3 or more poison counters, right? If an opponent. So any one of your opponents, right? So it's even better in Commander, I guess. Sacrifice an artifact or creature, draw a card. So, you know, this is a limited card. It's not, you know, you have to get the 3 poison counters first, and then you can have it as a sacrifice outlet. It would be a good sacrifice outlet. Probably too expensive, but yeah, you have to have the poison counters. Drowning Nika, 1 and a black, target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn to proliferate. This is what I'm talking about when proliferate is getting cheaper. Like -4/-4 is like a 2 mana effect for a creature, and then you get proliferate on this. So I think this would actually be, it's actually decent. -4/-4 is not a lot, but it's going to hit something. It's going to generally hit something. It is sorcery speed though, which is, I guess, the problem. So normally this -4/-4 for 2 mana would be an instant speed thing. So I guess you're giving up that for proliferate. But 2 mana is cheap enough that I think this might be okay. So it's really about if you want the proliferate. So your infect and super friend decks are gonna, yeah, you might play this as a removal. Feed the infection, so 3 and a black. You draw 3 cards, you lose 3 life. Corrupted. Each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters loses 3 life. So if all your opponents have 3, then each of them loses 3. So that's 9 life, 12 life, including yourself, and you draw 3 cards. Ultimately, yeah. I mean, these kind of cards already exist. Not that great. Necrogen Communion, 1 and a black. Enchant creature you control, so it's an aura. Enchant creature has Toxic 2. When it dies, return to the battlefield. Yeah, this is kind of okay. The interesting thing is Toxic 2 does stack with Toxic as well as Infect. So, you know, if you want to keep your Infect thing around, I think this is, yeah, I mean, you might stick this in your thing. I don't really play like Kaya's Ghost form a lot. It's always like the 110th card or something like that. So if I really cared about Toxic, I might try this in Skitterix and see how I feel. Because A, it protects it, and B, it gives it extra infect, but you can definitely 2-for-1 yourself, and people want to kill that creature anyway. So yeah, I mean, I think it's worth just giving it a go, but you really need to care about the Toxic too. Necrosquito. Cool. Phyrexian Insect 0/0 enters battlefield with 2 oil counters, gets +1/+1 for each oil counter. When another creature or artifact you control is put into the graveyard from your battlefield, put an oil counter. You know, this is the limited, it gets bigger when something happens, right? So yeah, just for limited. Nimraiser Paladin, 4 and a black, Toxic 2. When it enters battlefield, return target creature with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to your hand, right? So, you know, just a limited card. Ravenous Necro Titan, 2 and 2 black, corrupted. When it enters battlefield, sacrifice a creature unless an opponent has 3 or more poison counters. I mean, yeah, 6/6, just a limited card. Pretty cool. Necro Titan sounds cool. Scheming Aspirant. Whenever you proliferate, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And it's a 1/3 for 1 and a black. That's really, really cool. I don't think there's enough proliferate to really start building that. That's more of a limited card, but you could start, like, I mean, outside of mono black, you could start looking into how does this work, because yeah, it's cool, kind of cool, but probably a limited card. Children's Edict, 1 and a black, instant, choose 1. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Each opponent sacrifices a planeswalker. Wow. So instant, 2 mana, great. And it's each opponent, right? So you're gonna choose non-token if you want to get tokens or creature or planeswalker. Of course, you can't choose 1 for each opponent. So most of the time, you're just gonna choose creature. Now, how important are edicts in Commander? Usually not that great, but at least you can get a creature specifically or a planeswalker specifically, or a non-token, I guess, but most of the time it's going to be creature or planeswalker, so that they don't sacrifice a token. So I think this is a pretty good edict, but how good edicts in Commander? Probably not that great, but it is a nice 3 for 1, and I guess Soul Shatter is a 3 for 1 for 1 more mana, but it gets the biggest thing. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna play this in Turgid, so there's that. Value Emergence, 4 and a black. Put target creature card from the graveyard on the battlefield under your control. Proliferate. 5 mana sorcery is probably, you know, this is too expensive. I mean, Zombify already exists and it's 4 mana, so you're paying 1 extra for Proliferate. That's probably too expensive now. We want cheap Proliferate, so yeah, not really that great. I'd probably play the Black Sun Zenith over this. Vat of Rebirth, 1 black for an artifact. Whenever another artifact or creature you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put an oil counter on Vat of Rebirth. 2 and a black and tap. Remove 4 oil counters. Return target creature from the graveyard to the battlefield. Only activated sorcery. This is really interesting, right? So it's whenever another artifact or creature you control is put into the graveyard, put an oil counter on it, right? So it doesn't come with any, so it has to be 4 creatures being put in, but you know, that's maybe Eternal 2's worth of creatures, and then you can reanimate something for 3 mana. It does not sacrifice itself, so you can keep on doing it. Yeah, I think this is really cool. It's 1 mana, so you can get it with Urza's Saga. Yeah, really, really cool for Commander. I think in Aristocrats deck, it's definitely worth trying. Annihilating, what? Annihilating, oh my gosh. Annihilating Glare, have to read it, oh my gosh. Black, additional costs, you can pay for, sacrifice an artifact or creature, destroy target creature or planeswalker. I mean, these are limited cards, not really that interesting. Anoint the Affliction, 1 and a black. So this is exile creature with mana value 3 or less. Exile instead that creature instead if it has 3 or more poison counters. So if you're in Dedicated Infect, this might actually be a decent room, right? 2 mana to exile a creature is really good value. Yeah, really good. But of course, you have to be in poison. Blightbelly Rats, 1 and a black, 2/2. Toxic 1. When it dies, proliferate. Now, these are kind of things like, yeah, I think this is decent enough if you really want proliferate. So in an Infect deck, I think this might be fine. Where, you know, if it dies, you proliferate, right? But I don't want to pay 5 for a proliferate. I want to play, yeah, 1 or 2 for my proliferate. So yeah, I think this is fine in purely an Infect deck. Bone Picker Scourge, flying, corrupted. It has Death Touch, a lifelink, 2/2 limited card. Yeah, most of these are just limited cards. The Pestilence Siphoner, I thought was interesting. Flying Toxic 1, 1/1. So, you know, a flying Infect card's pretty decent. Infectious Inquiry. So, draw 2, lose 2, poison counter. I thought, yeah, it might be okay. I think in your, casual infect, if you want to just start getting those poison counters, each opponent gets it, so which is nice, kind of spreading it around. Vraska's Fall, I thought was interesting. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker and gets a poison counter. So again, that 3 mana starting to get poison counters on people, I think is kind of interesting. So, like, this effect is a 2 mana effect usually. This effect is a 2 mana effect, but you're paying 1 to give each person a poison counter. That's kind of okay. Like, these are going to be in your slower casual infect decks, right? They're not like going to be, super powerful stuff, but you would play these in your casual infect deck. So yeah, I think there's some interesting stuff here. I think Vraska's Betrayal Sting's going to be played, but people might not like it eventually. Other than that, yeah, I don't see too much going on here in your uncommon and commons. I think Shieldred Edicts will be played. That to Rebirth is probably my most excited one. Yeah, so it's just for the color stuff. So Staff of Completion, 3 mana, essentially Staff of Domination. So pay 1 life, destroy target permanent you own, pay 2 life, add 1 mana of any color, pay 3 life, proliferate, add 4 life, draw a card, untap it for 5 life. Yeah, so really interesting card. Of course, because it's pay life, right? So you don't have to pay any mana. But the thing is, yes, you're going to be paying life, and you will do that. But it's not going to have the same combo effects, because essentially you need infinite life to kind of really circumvent these kind of effects. And the thing about mono black is pretty much every combo that is infinite life is also infinite life loss for your opponents usually. So it's not really going to add anything. But 3 mana, proliferate every turn, 3 mana, draw another card, kind of like Phyrexian Arena, but it's just like worse. But yeah, I think its flexibility is gonna find some play. Sword of Forge and Frontier, 3 mana. So this is the sword of cycle. This is the second last one. +2/+2 protection from red and green. It will exile the top 2 cards, and then you can play an additional land. Right, and it's just the normal sword stuff. Yeah, I think this is a decent. I think in Commander this is going to be a decent sword. Protection from green is nice because those are usually the biggest creatures, usually bigger than in mono black's creatures. And yeah, you're just going to get an additional land drop, and one of those cards that you might exile might be a land. Like, yeah, it's just a nice value card. I think it's a decent sword. Agenda Masticore, 5 mana for a 5/5 Phyrexia Manticore. First strike, protection from multicolors. At the beginning of your upkeep, you would sacrifice it unless you discard a card. When you discard a card, you can destroy target non-land permanent equal to that mana value, or less than equal. So yeah, I was like, oh man, this card seems awesome. I think the ceiling is very high and the floor is very low, and there's all this in between. That's usually what's going to happen is you're going to have your 4 cards, and you A, don't want to get rid of some of them, and B, there might be like 2-3 mana. It's not really going to get much, but it is non-land permanent, so you get someone's Soul Ring or whatever. I think, yeah, this reads really well. I might try this in a reanimator where I want to discard something huge, but then I have to, destroy it. And every turn I have to kind of get it, and I have to wait till my upkeep. Yeah, and it's 5 mana, but it does have protection from multicolor, which is kind of nice. And first strike, 5/5, that's decent. Yeah, I think it reads better than it would actually play in real life. Cool. All right, Graz Unstoppable Juggernaut is a Juggernaut. Juggernauts you control attack each combat. They can't be blocked. Juggernauts you control can't be blocked by walls. Other creatures you control become Juggernauts that are 5/3. And this one's a 7/5. Yeah, sure. I'm not really going to be playing Juggernaut Tribal in my mono black deck, but cool card. Mirror and Safe House, 3 mana. As long as Mirror and Safe House is on the battlefield, it has all activated abilities of all lands in all graveyards. Yeah, cool card. Mono black's not really a lands in graveyard kind of thing, but if someone, you know, gets rid of your Cabal Coffers, sure. You could also, you know, activate from there. As long as it has all activated abilities. If someone puts their fetch land in, you can sacrifice it to go get land. Cool. Probably not really worth it. Mirrex, it's a sphere. Add to colorless. It can be any color if the turn it comes in, and it creates a might token. So might tokens are toxic 1 artifact creatures that can't block. Yeah, mites I don't think are gonna be that great. A non-blocking 1/1 just doesn't seem that valuable. It has no evasion of any kind. But yeah, getting a creature every turn, so maybe in some kind of like token strategy. Other than that, not really interested. Monument to Perfection, 2 mana, super cheap. You can search for a basic sphere or locust for 3 mana and put it to your hand. And then 3 mana, it becomes a 9/9, loses all abilities, gains indestructible and toxic 9, but you need to have 9 or more lands with different names among basic spheres and locust lands you control. Yeah, ultimately, you're just not really going to be achievable in mono black. You might try to do it. I've wanted to build a Field of Dead mono black deck, so is there enough basic spheres and locusts lands? I don't think so. Solar Shaler, 2 for a 0 for Phyrexian Golem. Permanent cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast non-creature spells from graveyards or exiles. You know, this is just a bit of a stacks piece. Probably more suited for 1v1, or maybe EDH might play this. I don't know. But yeah, not really for casual commander. Tablet of Completion. I don't know why this card exists. 2 mana. You can tap it to put an oil counter on. You can tap it to make colorless, but you can only do it if you have 2 oil counters. Draw a card for 1 mana and tap it. Only if you have 5 oil counters. I mean, if you're building an oil deck, good on you. The Filigree Silex 2, put an oil counter on it. Sacrifice it to destroy each non-land permanent with mana value to the number of oil counters you have. Remove 10 oil counters from among permanents you control and sacrifice it. It deals 10 damage to any target. This is essentially Ratchet Bomb, which is not really played in Commander, but if you are building an oil deck, sure, go for it. The Monumental Facade, it enters the battlefield, 2 oil counters on it. You can tap for colorless, remove an oil counter from it, put it on some artifact or creature, activate only as a sorcery. Goes in your oil deck that you're not building. The Mycosith Garden Sphere taps for colorless 1 and taps to make any mana of any color, so you know, filters, which is not great. But for X and tap, it becomes a copy of target non-token artifact you control with mana value X. So yeah, really, really interesting. Do note that, of course, is the tap ability that whatever you copy will be tapped. So say you copy, you know, 1 and tap this for Soul Ring, it's gonna come, you know, it's gonna be tapped, but that's still a fantastic play. You will lose your land because it will be an artifact now. But you might copy, say, something like a Jet Medallion or something like that, right? Where you don't really care about whether it's tapped or not. Yeah, really cool card. The Seed Core taps for a colorless. Any color if you spend it for Phyrexian. Target 1/1 creature gets +2/+1 until end of turn. Activate only in a poison. Only if your opponent has 3 or more poison counters. I had a look. There's actually quite a lot of 1/1 Phyrexians, 23 of them in mono black. And I think in my Skithorix deck, I play 9 of them. So yeah, this is interesting. I think ultimately not really worth it, but yeah, kind of cool card. If you want to play 1/1 tribals, Phyrexian tribals, sure. Zenith Chronicler, 2 for a Phyrexian construct, 3/1. Whenever a player casts their first multicolor spell, each other player draws a card. So, you know, it's not going to obviously affect us, but if our opponents play multicolor spells, each of their opponents will draw, which will of course be us. But why would I want my opponents to draw? Probably more for group hugs. Other than that, Mere Convert has Toxic, and you pay 2 life to add 1 mana of any color. Kind of cool. Rib Skiff has great art. Dross Skull Bomb is a 1 mana artifact that you can get with your Urza Saga. So 1 mana, sacrifice a draw card, or you can pay 2 and a black to essentially return a creature from the graveyard to your hand, and you can get to draw a card. So it's a nice little effect. Like, it's not great. Probably 1 too expensive. But yeah. If you are in Urza Saga deck, sure. Yeah, other than that, Dross Pit, not particularly interested. It's kind of like a cycling land, I guess, but you get to play it and get to use it and then cash it in, so maybe for some budget card draw. So yeah, so I think Sword of Forge and Frontier will definitely be popular, no doubt about that. I think people will play Star for Completion and it will just be okay. And then Mike's Garden is going to be really, really popular. Yeah, so that's my thoughts. I think Toxic is just an okay ability, but I think the Proliferate's going to be interesting. So how many Proliferates did we actually get? So no Commanders proliferate, but Vraska proliferates, and Drown and Ica proliferates, and then it's just the Vraskas? No, Vraska puts a counter. This puts a counter. Oh yeah, Whisper of the Dross. I don't know about that one. That's -1/-1 to proliferate. Maybe. You really need to proliferate on that one. So yeah, not too much proliferate. Oh yeah. We've got like some of these limited proliferates, but probably not really. Something. Oh yeah, Blightbelly Rat, I think it will be an okay proliferator as well. And then Vatameasure. So there's a bit of proliferation. And I think it's better than it used to be. But yeah, I think Infect will probably do better. I'm definitely going to be playing my Skithorus again. Build it back up. But yeah. All up, very cool set. I love the aesthetics. I think, 5 Mono Black Commanders being really, really great. I don't think any of them really add something new other than maybe Drivenod. But fun nonetheless. Great. Well, I hope you enjoy. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.